Yes, welcome back. Let's read this, but the camcorder is kind of out of power. But let's get started.
Grumman HU-16 Albatross. HU-16 Albatross, a U.S. Navy Grumman UF-1 Albatross Rolly Air Sea Rescue Flying Boat Manufacturer. Grumman first flight October 24, 1947. 1. Introduction 1949. Retired 1995. Hellenic Navy. Status retired. Primary users United States Air Force, United States Coast Guard, United States Navy. Hellenic Navy. Produced 1949-1961. Number built 466. Developed from Grumman Mallard. The Grumman HU-16 Albatross is a large, twin radial-engined amphibious seaplane that was used for the United States Air Force, USAF, the U.S. Navy, USN, and the U.S. Coast Guard, USCG, primarily as a search and rescue, SAR, aircraft. Originally designated as the HU-16 for the USAF and the Junior 2 F-1 and UF-1 for the USN and USCG, it was redesignated as the HU-16 in 1962. A new build G111T Albatross with modern avionics and engines was proposed in 2021, with production in Australia to commence in 2025. 2. Design and development. An improvement of the design of the Grumman Mallard, the Albatross was developed to land in open ocean situations to accomplish rescues. Its deep V-hull cross-section and keel length enable it to land in the open sea. The Albatross was designed for optimal 4-foot, 1.2 m, seas, and could land in more severe conditions, but required JATO, jet-assisted takeoff, or simply booster rockets, for takeoff in 8-10 foot, 2.43.0 m, seas or greater. Operational history. A USAF HU-16 during the Korean War. Most Albatrosses were used by the U.S. Air Force, USAF, primarily in the search and rescue, SAR, mission role, and initially designated as HU-16. The USAF used the HU-16 extensively in Korea for combat rescue, where it gained a reputation as a rugged and seaworthy craft. Later, the redesignated HU-16B, long-wing variant, Albatross was used by the USAF's Aerospace Rescue and Recovery Service and saw extensive combat service during the Vietnam War. In addition, a small number of Air National Guard Air Commando groups were equipped with HU-16s for covert infiltration and extraction of special forces from 1956 to 1971. 3. Other examples of the HU-16 made their way into Air Force Reserve Rescue and Recovery units prior to its retirement from USAF service. The U.S. Navy also employed the HU-16C/D Albatross as an SA aircraft from coastal naval air stations, both stateside and overseas. It was also employed as an operational support aircraft worldwide and for missions from the former Naval Air Station Agana, Guam, during the Vietnam War. Goodwill flights were also common to the surrounding trust territory of the Pacific Islands in the early 1970s. Open water landings and water takeoff training using JATO was also conducted. Grumman HU-16 Albatross at MacDill, AFB, Florida, 1951 or early 1952. Frequently by U.S. Navy HU-16s from locations such as NAS Agana, Guam, Naval Station Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, NAS Barbers Point, Hawaii, NAS North Island, California, NAS Key West, Florida, NAS Jacksonville, Florida, and NAS Pensacola, Florida, among other locations. The HU-16 was also operated by the U.S. Coast Guard as both a coastal and long-range open ocean SAR aircraft for many years until it was supplanted by the HU-25 Guardian and HC. 130 Hercules. The final USAF HU-16 flight was the delivery of AF serial number 51-5282 to the National Museum of the United States Air Force at Wright-Patterson AFB, Ohio, in July 1973 after setting an altitude record of 32,883 feet earlier in the month. 4. The final U.S. Navy HU-16 flight was made the 13th of August, 1976, when an Albatross was delivered to the National Museum of Naval Aviation at NAS Pensacola, Florida. 5. The final U.S. CG HU-16 flight was at Gus Cape Cod in March, 1983, when the aircraft type was retired by the U.S. CG. The Albatross continued to be used in the military service of other countries, the last being retired by the Hellenic Navy, Greece, in 1995. The Royal Canadian Air Force operated Grumman Albatrosses with the designation CSR-110. Civil operations. Chalks International Airlines Albatross arriving in Miami Harbor from Nassau, Bahamas. In 1987 in the mid-1960s the U.S. Department of the Interior acquired 3 military Grumman HU-16s from the U.S. Navy and established the Trust Territory Airlines in the Pacific to serve the islands of Micronesia. Pan American World Airways and finally Continental Airlines Air Micronesia operated the Albatrosses serving Lap Palau, Chuuk, Truk, and Pohnpei from Guam until 1970. When adequate island runways were built, allowing land operations. Many surplus Albatrosses were sold to civilian operators, mostly tar private owners. These aircraft are operated under either experimental exhibition or restricted category and cannot be used for commercial operations, except under very limited conditions. In the early 1980s, Chalks International Airlines owned by Merv Griffin's Resorts International had 13 Albatrosses converted to standard category as G111s. This made them eligible to be used in scheduled airline operations. These aircraft had extensive modification from the standard military configuration, including rebuilt wings with titanium wing spar caps, additional doors and modifications to existing door sound hatches, stainless steel engine oil tanks, dual-engine fire extinguishing systems on each engine, and propeller auto-feather systems installed. The G111s were operated for only a few years and then put in storage in Arizona. Most are still parked there, but some have been returned to regular flight operations with private operators. Satellite technology company Row 44 bought an HU-16B Albatross, registration N44HQ6, in 2008 to test its in-flight satellite broadband internet service. Named Albatross 1, the company selected the aircraft for its operations because it has the same curvature atop its fuselage as the Boeing 737 aircraft, for which the cockpit of Grumman Albatross N44 Road, which flew around the world in 1997. Company manufactures its equipment. The plane purchased by Row 44 was used at one time as a training aircraft for Space Shuttle astronauts by NASA. It features the autographs of the astronauts who trained aboard the plane on one of the cabin walls. 7. 8. In 1997, a Grumman Albatross, N44 Road, piloted by Reed Dennis and Andy McPhee, became the first Albatross to circumnavigate the globe. The 26,347 mi flight around the world lasted 73 days, included 38 stops in 21 countries, and was completed with 190 hours of flight time. 9. In 2013, Reed Dennis donated N44 Road to the Hiller Aviation Museum. 10. Since the aircraft weighs over 12,500 pounds, pilots of civilian US-registered Albatross aircraft must have a type rating. A yearly Albatross fly-in is held at Boulder City, Nevada, where Albatross pilots can become type rated. Proposed new build. Amphibian Aerospace Industries in Darwin, Australia, acquired the type certificate and announced in December 2021 that it planned to commence manufacturing a new version, the Albatross, from 2025. Dubbed the G111T, it would have modern avionics and Pratt & Whitney PT6 A67F turboprop engines with variants for passengers, freight, search and rescue, coastal surveillance, and aeromedical evacuation. 11, 12 variants. An XJR2F1 prototype at NAS Patuxent River in the 1940 XJR2F1, prototype designation, 2 built. HU-16, originally SA-16, USAF version. HU-16, originally UF1, Indonesian version. HU-16B, originally SA-16B, USAF version, modified with long wing. HU-16B, modified HU-16B for anti-submarine warfare, export version, featured an AN/APS-88 in the nose and MAD boom in the tail. 13. HU-16C, originally UF1, US Navy version. LU-16C, originally UF1L, US Navy version. TU-16C, originally UF1T, US Navy version. HU-16D, originally UF1, US Navy version, modified with long wing. HU-16D, originally UF2, German version, built with long wing. HU-16E, originally UF2G, US Coast Guard version, modified with long wing. HU-16E, originally SA-16, USAF version, modified with long wing. G111, originally SA-16, civil airline version derived from USAF, JASDF, and German originals. CSR 110, a CAF version, 14. G111T, proposed new builds with modern avionics and turboprop engines. Operators. Argentina HU-16B of the Argentine Air Force laid first flight to Port Stanley, 1972. Argentine Air Force, 3 aircraft. 15. Argentine Naval Aviation, 4 aircraft. 16. Brazilian Air Force, 17. Canada A. Grumman Albatross of the RCAF International Test Pilots School, 18. Royal Canadian Air Force, 19. Chilean Air Force, 20. Republic of China Air Force, 21. Germany preserved Hellenic F aircraft at Dekelia AB. German Navy, 22. Greece Hellenic Air Force, 23. Indonesian Navy, 24. Indonesian Air Force, 25. Airfast Indonesia, 26. Dirgantara Air Service, 27. Pelotah Air, 27. Italian Air Force, 28. Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force, 28. Malaysia. Royal Malaysian Air Force, 29. Mexico A. Spanish HU-16 Mexican Navy, 30. Norway Royal Norwegian Air Force, 31. Pakistan Air Force, 32. Peruvian Air Force, 33. Philippine Air Force, 34. Portuguese Air Force, 35. Spain Spanish Air Force, 36. U.S. Coast Guard HU-16E from CGAS Cape Cod in the 1970s. Thailand Royal Thai Navy, 28. United States Air Force, 37. United States Coast Guard, 38. United States Navy, 28, 39. Aircraft on display. HU-16 AFSA. Number 51-0006, Strategic Air and Space Museum in Ashland, Nebraska, 40. AFSA. Number 51-0022, Pima Air and Space Museum adjacent to Davis Monthan AFB in Tucson, Arizona, 41. AFSA. Number 51-7144, Museum of Aviation, Robbins AFB, Georgia, 42. AFSA. Number 51-7163, Castle Air Museum adjacent to the former Castle AFB, Atwater, California, 43. AFSA. Number 51-7176, Coast Guard Air Station, Clearwater, Florida. It was previously at the Pate Museum of Transportation in Cresson, Texas, until its disassembly and relocation to CGAS Clearwater for restoration. It is currently marked as USCG 1023.44. AFSA. Number 51-7193, Maryland Air National Guard Museum, Warfield Air National Guard Base, Baltimore, Maryland, 45. AFSA. Number 51-7195, Yanks Air Museum, Chino, California, 46. Millimeter 50-179, Italian Air Force Museum, Vina di Vale, Italy, 47. HU-16, Indonesian version, UF-1 Albatross of the Indonesian Air Force at Dirgantara Mandala Museum Year 0117 on display at Dirgantara Mandala Museum Sleman Regency, Special Region of Yogyakarta, Indonesia, 48. IR0220 on storage in Hussein Sastranegara International Airport, Bandung, West Java, Indonesia. It was displayed during Bandung Air Show 2017. 4950. Unknown on display at Abdul Rahman Saleh Air Force Base, Malang, East Java, Indonesia. 51. HU-16 BBS-02, Museo Nacional de Aeronáutica de Argentina BS-02, Museo Nacional de Aeronáutica de Argentina, at Morón, Buenos Aires, Argentina, 52, 53. XBS-03, Museo Aviación Naval, Buenos Aires, Argentina. Displayed as Argentine Naval Aviation 4BS-3.16. AF serial number 51-5282, at the National Museum of the United States Air Force, Wright-Patterson AFB, Ohio. This was USAF's last operational HU-16. On 4 July 1973, it established a world record for twin-engined amphibians when it reached 32,883 feet and was transferred to the Air Force Museum 2 weeks later. 54. AFSA. Number 51-7181, then Buno 151,265, Utapao Thai Navy Airfield, Satahip, Chonburi Province, Thailand, 55, 56, former USAF and USN aircraft in Royal Thai Navy markings, now bearing registration 151,265 and displayed as a gate guardian since the early 1990s. HU-16 Puno 137,928 Hemisphere Dancer, Universal Studios, Orlando, Florida, 57, former U.S. aircraft in civilian markings, previously owned by musician and pilot Jimmy Buffett. Puno 137,932, Hiller Aviation Museum, San Carlos, California, N44 Road, formerly owned by Reed W. Dennis. 58. HU-16 EAFSA. Number 51-7209, Aerospace Museum of California, former McClellan AFB, Sacramento, California, 59. AFSA. Number 51-7216, Floyd Bennett Field, New York City, New York, 60. AFSA. Number 51 to 7228, New England Air Museum, Windsor Locks, Connecticut, 61. USCG 7236, National Museum of Naval Aviation, Nas Pensacola, Florida, 62. AFSA. Number 51 to 7228.